are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the world renowned author, um, just a frontline soldier, mother, and so much more, a woman empowerment speaker and very motivational online and in person as well. None other than Miss Echo Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum salam, Josh. Not world renowned. Okay.
We gonna get these book sales up. You know what's happening. You know what we doing. Um, well, first of all, speaking of the book, let's start right there. What is the name of your book and how did it come about?
Well, I have it here. So it's Empower Her Soul, a Black woman's guide to self-love and color. And it's actually an adult coloring book for women.
Mm.
So I know your sister has a copy. Shout out to Mimi. I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
her so much. Um, so I launched this book in the end of November of 2024. And little backstory of how it came about. I guess I should start from the beginning. Um, what people probably do not know, I had anxiety really bad.
Mm.
From just I guess different things that have happened in my life, and then on top of that, just being a natural uh, perfectionist. I'm a Virgo, so you know how that is. Like
Yes, ma'am.
everything just gotta be so. And so in my younger years, I spent a lot of time just stressing over a lot of the little things. Um, and just I'm kind of one of those people, I make things happen. And your mom was instrumental in that. She would have me to do things because she knew that I was gonna make it happen. Um, but part of that is part of me having that kind of attitude was stressing out about things that really I had no control over.
Mm.
Um, and then as I got older, certain things started happening in my life that I think attributed to the anxiety. I don't know. I'm sure you were I don't know if you ever heard stories, but when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, Anissa, I was carjacked.
Mm.
And I was about 6 months pregnant with her. And at the time, my little brother was going to MUI. I had just dropped him off at school and came back to the house, and two guys uh, stopped me to ask what time it was. And and then they pulled the gun on. I knew what time it was. I didn't look down. I knew what time it was. I had just got out the car. I had just taken my brother to school, and they pulled the gun out on me. And at the time, my soldier mentality was I don't know what I was thinking, because I was 6 months pregnant. I don't know what I was thinking, but they asked for the keys, and I was like, no, they were actually a few feet away from me. I wasn't actually in the car. I had just got out the car. And they were a few feet away from me. Actually, one was a few feet away from me. The other one was across the street waiting. And they asked for the keys. And I was like, no. No. And I was actually returning the car it was my grandfather's car I was borrowing at the time. And I was ringing the doorbell to give him his keys back to the car. And so I told them, no, I wasn't giving them the keys. And then I remembered, you're pregnant. What are you doing? And so I remember throwing the keys as far as I could throw them. And then I just sound the alarm. I just started saying Allahu Akbar just as loud as I could. So everybody was coming out, the whole thing. And I had full garment on,
Mm.
full garment. And so I didn't realize it then. And I just remembered, like, shortly after it happened, your mom came over to the house, and sat with me and the whole thing. And I guess I didn't realize until later when other things started happening how much anxiety that caused for me. And so it was kind of, so that, I don't want to say that that was the first thing, but that's the first thing that I can remember now that kind of started this anxiety. So as I got older, other things tragically happened in my life. And so it got to a point where I just it was debilitating. I just didn't like feeling like not so much in fear, but just having that anxious kind of spirit. And so I kept trying to figure out, okay, this is not good for me. What can I do to try to combat this or get over this? And so what kind of started for me was being introduced to meditation.
Hmm.
Now, we pray, and I learned that spiritualist has I think his name is Edward Casey or Edwin Casey. He said, we pray to talk to God. We meditate to listen to what he has to say. And that stuck, when I heard that, that stuck with me. And so I wanted to combat the anxiety, but really quiet my mind, um, so that I wouldn't have all of this anxious feeling. And so I started meditating. And because I had the anxiety, Josh, I couldn't sit still for 5 minutes
Hmm.
to try to meditate. People say, well, how do you meditate? How do you meditate? I just, started scratching where it didn't itch and just being real fidgety or whatever, because I was always on the go and just always on the move. And I just had a hard time, but I made up my mind that I was going to do something different. And I was going to just meditate, whether it was, for 5 minutes. I was just going to sit there. When I first started, I couldn't sit still for 5 minutes,
Hmm.
and then my mind was going, what I need to go to get from the grocery store, or what bills I needed to pay, or, I started thinking about all these things while I'm supposed to be in this meditative state.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I just stuck with it. And eventually I started doing 5-minute meditations. And then, it got longer and longer, where now the longest that I've ever sat and actually meditated has been an hour. And
Hmm.
it's so not just relaxing, but the downloads that I get from that, from taking that time to quiet my mind, to really listen to what God has to say, has really helped to transform my life. I get a lot of ahas. I get a lot of light bulb moments, in that state. And I think that for a lot of us, we're so busy on the go that we don't take the time to slow down, and which hinders us because we don't always make the right decisions.
That's right.
We don't have emotional intelligence. We do a lot of things, because we want them to happen so quickly. We want them to happen right now. So I started meditating. Well, the meditation kind of led to uh, breathing exercises and just slowing down. That led into me practicing yoga. And so it was like a building block. So one thing led to another. And so that's kind of where it kind of all started for me. I was on this self-love, self-care journey for a while. I think that especially after my, as my children got older, they started needing me in a different way. And then I started looking at I said, okay, so who am I outside of my children and what I do for them? And so part of the meditation and the self-care and the self-love was me taking that time to figure out what it was that Echo wanted and what was important to me. And so I just started doing the things to really take care of me because I was such a, they call it a soccer mom. My children were in everything. They were in dance, they were in, Girl Scouts, gymnastics, they were doing all of that. And as they were getting older and not needing me the same way, then I had to say, okay, well, what about me? Because, I had my oldest daughter, Anissa, at 23.
Mm.
So I was married young, I had her young. Um, and so my whole adult life has been, raising my children. And so as they now are, young adults, then it's like, okay, now it's my turn.
Mm.
So what about me? What is it that I like to do? And so me taking care of myself and making myself a priority, um, has been a big thing for me. So, if you follow me on social media, I'm very transparent, about how I feel about things, what I think, what I see, whatever, and I share that. And so a lot of people were then coming to me and said, well, Echo, can you teach me how to meditate? Or are you going to get certified in yoga? Because I want to do yoga. I'm interested in, the way that you eat and the way that you live and the whole thing. They just seemed interested in me being me, basically.
Mm. Mm.
And so I just, because I was sharing so much, this past last October, I decided to host a 1-day retreat here in Chicago. And it was the Empower Her Mind, Body, and Soul retreat. And
Mm.
basically, it was a 1-day retreat where I introduced all the modalities that um, I do to take care of myself. I
Mm.
introduced that to women that may not have known. So I rented a space. I had Sister Danielle was my yoga instructor. She came, she taught yoga for the women. I had Sister Laki Shay did the sound bowl meditation.
Okay. Okay.
I had another friend of mine who did the breathing exercises. I had a massage therapist there. Um, I don't know if you know, but my daughter Anissa is a certified athletic trainer, so she
Um,
did stretch therapy for the women. I had another friend of mine come and she did belly dancing class. We
mm.
had a full plant-based uh, vegan lunch. So I introduced, clean foods to them.
Yes,
And of
ma'am.
course, we had sister circle, conversations. And I really want to stress the importance of taking time for you and slowing down and taking care of yourself. And so I did that in October. And then shortly after, a month after, in November, I got an aha moment about how can I take this further, because the feedback I got from the women were that, well, this I didn't even know I needed this. Like, this was
Mm.
really good. I got really good feedback. Um, and even with the meditation part of it, they really, some women they struggled with it, but they enjoyed it. Like, they realized that they needed it, but it's something that you have to practice doing. And so I had an aha moment after that event of how can I create something to kind of get people to slow down, and people, women especially, if they can't sit and feel like they can't sit and meditate. That's when I got the idea to do the coloring book. Because
Mm.
when is the last time as an adult that you colored? You know what I'm saying? And you probably haven't. But you might be in a meeting and you got a pen and paper and you start doodling, you start scratching on that or whatever, and then you not paying attention to what the speaker is saying, your mind is somewhere else. So coloring is a form of meditation. And so I thought that that was a creative way to bring this uh, to people that may struggle a little bit, to give them something creative to do. And so that's how I came up with the concept of this this book. And in the book, it not only has coloring pages, it has self-care tips, and it also has journal prompts. So, it's kind of, a 3 for 1, I guess you could say, and giving them a full self-care experience. And, even if you take 10, 15 minutes out of your day to just sit there and color or do the journal prompts or whatever, that's helping with your self-care.
Beautiful. All praises to like this is excellent, Echo. And people are showing love all around the world. Thank you, Alaikum Salam, Sis Naima, righteous by nature. Alaikum Salam, so true about meditation. Brother Mays X, thank you very much. Brother Mays, Alaikum Salam, could you please reach out to me on social media? Thank you for the super chat. Brother Michael said congratulations. Shout out to Brother Michael. My sister Naima says beautiful. Brother Benny, Alaikum Salam, Benny. Thank you, Brother Benny. Thank you all for showing love. Okay, now Sister Echo, I want to go back to first of all, can you show your book again so we can continue to highlight that and let us know where can we get it, ma'am?
So the book is published on Amazon. Empower Her Soul, A Black Woman's Guide to Self-Love and Color. Or you can, if you look it up on Amazon, you can look up by the title or my name. It's Miss Echo Chantel on Amazon. If But then you can also follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram. It's Miss Echo Chantel. I have a link in my bio where people can purchase it directly from me if they want.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. We're going to show love everybody on People's Podcast to make sure we all support and buy her book. I wanted to ask you the traumatic experience of you being robbed at while you were pregnant, 6 months pregnant. A lot of women, men too, have had experiences with violence or things that we get stuck back there. Are you saying that through coloring and through meditation, it can help us get unstuck from a traumatic experience in our past?
Well, I'm not a therapist, so I can't say. I just know I just know what has worked for me.
Yes,
Me
ma'am.
slowing down and taking the time. Because now even my children laugh about, they talk about me now. They say, you just don't care about anything. And it's not that I don't care. It's just that my energy, I've redirected my energy, basically. And I don't worry about things that I have no control over. I'm only in control of me.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so, and if it's something that I don't want to be bothered with, I'm just not going to be bothered. And I'm not saying that that's due to the meditation. I mean, that's partly due to my age. I'm just not worried. I'm just not sweating the small stuff anymore.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. And also shout out to Sister Danielle who came on the podcast and got
Yeah.
so many people involved in, the thought of yoga. Of course, women, but I brought, men on as well to see how important it is. I took it in college and yoga is life-changing. So I'm always promoting meditation, anything we can do to keep everybody positive. Also, are you saying that for men who may not, want to do coloring and things like that, but you saying we can go to a website or to Amazon and buy it for our sisters, our mothers, our girlfriends, wives, whatever, daughters. You saying we can support that way as well?
Of course, of course.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now Sudeko, I do want to have a question. So, I mean, I have many questions for you. My siblings was all sending me questions and asking so many things about back in the day. Of course, you watched us grow up, but we love drill on the People's Podcast. And for those who may not know, so the Echo was a great driller on the drill teams and things of that nature, Vanguard and all that good stuff. What are some of your favorite memories about drilling?
Favorite. Well, I guess it would have to be I think that was 95. Were we at Christ Universal in 95?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think we at Christ Universal in 95. So that drill team, that's when we came out in the black fatigues.
Yeah, yeah.
And the red berets. So yeah, that was the highlight. That was I think that might have been the only time I participated in the national drill competition.
Okay, okay.
So, but yeah, no, that, I mean, that, of course, Sister Tadara and, Sister Colliday was on that drill squad. So yeah, that was probably the highlight uh for me.
Yes, ma'am. And my sister Naima said she's going to get her copy today. Thank you, Naima. Thank you to everybody else who's watching.
Yeah,
Make sure
thank
y'all
you,
check.
Naima. That's
Yes,
so
ma'am.
sweet.
Now we also in the People's Podcast, we're gonna give it away to we're gonna buy the book, but then we'll give it away to people who comment. We'll buy a copy and give it to away to some of the sisters who want to do adult art and what do you call it? Adult coloring.
Well, yeah, it's a coloring book.
Coloring book,
It's
yes,
it's
ma'am.
it's
So
it's, it's, it's a
you
coloring
got we're
book.
gonna buy one today and we're gonna give it away as well. But I wanted to ask you, ma'am, growing up, we saw you all in the different color Vanguard uniforms and all these treats. It was nothing but it seemed like sisterhood and then like you said, all these years later, you're still using people from the back in the day to y'all still seem locked in.
Oh,
What
we
was so
are
beautiful?
locked in.
Okay,
Once
good, good.
once we if they are really your sisters, they are your sisters for life. If that's if it even though we met there, in the nation came together, we all came from different places or whatever, but once you develop that sisterhood, if it's true and it's genuine, then your sisters for life. And for those that know, Sister Abiola and I have been rocking and rolling for over 31 years. So I just talked to her maybe about an hour before we got on this call or whatever. And we've traveled together, me, and the sisters, we traveled together and shared all of our life experiences, with each other. So even though you all may not see us physically, there, it does not matter. The sisterhood, still lives, and we still tight.
That's incredible. It inspires me whenever my sisters say, "Hey, you saw Echo Stabio taking pictures together." And I'm like, I ain't see, we miss you all. But my question is for you, what was what made the bond so beautiful that you all met and all these years later y'all still locked in? Like what was it about that?
I think I mean, of course we had the commonality. But I think that just all the shared experiences
Mm,
that we had. Um, and Sister Abiola, she talks about it all the time because she was like, I just walked up to her. She was new. I was already registered before she came in. And
okay, okay.
we were having a dinner or something, at in the gym, and I forget, she had on a garment, and her father is from Nigeria, so the fabric that she had her garment made of was really nice, and I complimented her on the garment and just started talking to her from there, and it was just like we just became friends. And she laughs about it, she talks about it all the time, saying that I bullied her into being her friend, but it really wasn't. I just have always kind of had that kind of personality where I will talk to anybody, and befriend you, until you show me a different side. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt for the most part. And so just sharing the same experiences, the things that we went through, um, you know, in that Vanguard class, and the training that we went through, there's nothing that can break that, and I think that that's what really has kept us together, even though we're older now and we've gone past that, but then other things, in our life, getting married, for us, some of us, getting divorced, having children, going back to school, getting multiple degrees, raising our children, you know, for them to be successful, changing careers, traveling, to like doing all the things that are important to us. We've done them together, and we've been a good support system for one another.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. This is beautiful. And thank you. And people are saying peace. This is great. Excellent. Adrian X. Thank you, Adrian. Blake Salam. We want to make sure we get our copy as well. Thank you all for everybody who's supporting. And I wanted to also ask you, we see you now, your hair, I've always seen you like, very feminine, Abiola. You all are so like dainty or feminine women, the vanguard from you all. But then I remember very vividly, it's been times when we were children, you all had a whole nother serious face on, hats, and y'all going into war and things of this nature. Were you ever made afraid? Did you ever face fear outside of that experience, but together? And how did you overcome that fear? Like, how do you all, so y'all so girly, but then y'all ready to go to war and Million March and all of the so much stuff that was going on in the
I
90s.
think it was really, I mean, I was little back then, you know, but I think it was just a matter of a mentality, you
Mm,
know, and like I said, we all come from different, backgrounds. I was never, really in the world per se or in the street, I didn't have that life.
mm,
Um, but I just remember for me personally, I can't speak to everybody, but for me coming in and being trained under Sister Captain Bessie Jean,
mm,
she made me feel like I could kill concrete. It was just that type of training that made me feel like there was nothing that I could not do. It didn't matter about my size or the fact that I was female or anything. It was really just it was a mental um thing,
okay.
and then so just receiving that training or whatever, it wasn't so much fear. I remember when um, the minister wanted the vanguard to flank him in New York.
Mm,
And I
mm,
think that was 97, maybe it was 97. Um, and I just remember, them pulling us. We were in New York, and I remember them pulling us into the hotel suite, and it was Sister Bessie Jean, Sister Donna, Sister Catherine Aisha, and they were talking to the honor guard, and they were like, the minister wants, the sisters around him or whatever. And I just, I was married at the time. I called, well, my ex-husband, he was on security as well, and I remember calling him to say, this is what's happening, and he was just like, do what you got to do. And I'm like, yeah,
mm,
okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I remember calling back to Chicago to call my mother because she had a niece. She was watching the niece at the time
mm,
while I was in New York. And I told her, I was like, this is what's happening. Like, I'm just letting you know, like, if something go down, this is what's happening, because this is what I'm doing. And it was just like, it was just no thing to me,
mm,
you know. So I can't even say that I wasn't hesitant. I can't even say that I was afraid. It was like, okay, I knew the severity, you know what I'm saying, or how serious the situation was.
yes,
But
ma'am.
it was just like, this is just, like I said, it didn't matter. Sister Bessie Jean had us believing we could kill concrete. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter at that point.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful. And so many people are showing nothing but love all around the world. We have a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast, and we're coming right back to our guest. Make sure we get her book and continue to show love. We are grateful for every like, share, and subscription to the People's Podcast. Our guest has so many great stories, and it's an honor to have her on the People's Podcast. And I haven't spoken to her since I was very young, but it's just like old time's sake. And thank you for
Yeah.
taking time to come on. Thank you, and also everybody who's watching. We're grateful for every like, share, and subscription. Thank you for every anonymous Cash App. You all help keep the podcast going. And 1 second. All right, and then we're coming right back to our guest. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and here we go. Here we go. And we are live with the People's Podcast. Stream Premiere Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please any of that. Sister Country, Sister Miriam, ABC, I Love Me, children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's. Perfect. That right now. 1 second. Okay, boom. Mrs. Echo, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, excellent. All right, yes, ma'am. The next question we have for you is, what is one of your favorite memories with our mother? She always spoke very highly of you. Uh, what was one of your favorite movies with her? I mean, favorite memories.
Um, wow. There's so many. I don't even know. I guess um like one thing I remember about her is her spontaneous road trips, where she would just get in the car and be like, "Come on, let's go." And then just spending time, at the house, with you all, um, and mother. That was just you know, feeling like, we were all part of the family.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody. That's just how she made us feel. That's how she made me feel. Um, and just soldiering with her. That I mean, it's too many. I can't give you one instance, Josh. I really can't. I just really can't.
Yes, ma'am. That's fine. What advice would you give to, well, we've seen you mentioned your two daughters, but they've grown to do great things. What advice would you give to future mothers?
So let me be careful about what I say because I don't want to offend anybody.
Yes, ma'am.
But when my children were growing up, I had mentioned about, they called it being a soccer mom, right? And I had them in other activities. My goal was to make well-rounded women. And I know that, there's a requirement as far as, making sure that you come to your classes and you do those things or whatever. But, my daughter's dance class was on Saturday mornings.
Yes, ma'am.
And, their, Girl Scout troop met on Friday after school. And so there were different things that were going on that I had to make a choice to be there for them as opposed to being at at the mosque all the time.
Yes, ma'am.
And so because of that, my children have gone on to do, amazing things. If I could just take a minute to brag on my children a little bit, because I feel like that has been my biggest accomplishment, Josh. Me raising my girls,
Go
of
ahead.
course, along with their father, but me raising them into the women that they have become. My oldest, Anissa Muhammad, she'll be 31 next week. She has, let me see, how many degrees? So she has a bachelor's degree in exercise science. She has a master's degree in athletic training. Um, she has another bachelor's degree in naturopathic medicine, and now she's in medical school to be a naturopathic doctor.
Go ahead.
So, and at 31. Um, and then Aaliyah, who is 25, she'll be 26 this summer in August. She has 2 degrees. She has a bachelor's in social work and a master's in social work. And she got
Mm,
her master's in social work, so she had 2 degrees by the time she was 22 years old.
mm.
Um, she works for Chicago Public Schools as a school social worker. And so she's both of them are doing great things. Aaliyah even purchased a condo,
Go ahead, sir.
at 25, right here in the South Shore area, of Chicago, right not far from where the Obama President Library is going to be. So, I mean, they're doing very good. And I attribute that to giving them opportunities to see other things and do other things. And so we really, poured into them. They've traveled internationally. They, both had passports, by the time they were 12, so it's those providing those types of opportunities. So my advice to mothers is to, take care of your children. Find out, what it is that they're interested in, and try to help cultivate that. And I say that because I had them in so many activities. One of the activities I had them in was track and field. They
Okay.
had they were part of a summer track club. And I don't know if you remember Sister Lazita or not, but Sister Lazita was their track coach,
Mm.
was one of their track coaches. And she ran track in high school. And her and another friend of ours started a summer track club. Well, I signed both my girls up. I think Aaliyah might have been, 4, and Anissa is she probably was about 9 or so, because they're 5 years apart. And so for a whole summer, they ran track. And we were
Yes,
up
ma'am.
at 6 o'clock in the morning. We were going, all over the city of Chicago and, southern part of Illinois, to go to all these different track meets. Well, when Anissa got in high school, she wanted to run track. So she ran track in high school. And she was on a 4x1 team, and they went downstate. But the problem was, what she noticed when she was in high school was that when an athlete got hurt, there was nobody to really take care of them. The coach didn't know. They were like, okay, go put some ice on it, elevate your foot. It's like that was the extent of it. And so when Anissa graduated high school and went to college, she said, I'm going to go into nursing. Okay, well, that makes sense. She wants to go into nursing. Well, that was competitive. When she got to college, it was very competitive to get into the nursing program. So she called me one day and she's like, I couldn't get into the nursing program. She said, I'm going to change my major to exercise science. And I said, Anissa, what is that? Because I had no idea, right? I'm like, I'm not spending this money for you to go to college to work out every day. Like I didn't understand what that was. But I'm a sports fan, so I watch, football and the whole thing. She's like, okay, you know how when you're watching football and a player gets hurt and people run out to the field and they got the polos and the khakis on, and I said, yeah. She said, that's what I'm gonna do. That's an
Mm.
athletic I said, oh, okay. Then it makes sense to me. Then I was able to put 2 and 2 together just to understand what it was that she was doing. And so she graduated after 4 years, and then she applied. She said, well, in order for me to be an athletic trainer, I have to have a master's degree. So she
Mm.
applied and she got into Texas A&M. So she went to Texas A&M and got her master's degree in athletic training. And she
Good.
was like the only Black woman in her program, because first of all, that career field is predominantly male and predominantly white male.
Mm.
And so she was, the only, Black female in her program. And then she got her master's degree. And she said that her desire was to come back to Chicago and introduce the career of athletic training to Chicago Public Schools. She wanted to be an athletic trainer for Chicago Public Schools. And so she, after graduating and getting her master's degree, she actually got a job at the University of Louisville as an assistant athletic trainer for track and field, which is a D1 school.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
She was an assistant athletic trainer for the University of Louisville. And so after that contract was up, for, I think she was there for about a year or maybe two, I'm not sure. Then she started getting offers. And one thing that, she learned was to always, she made connections. Whenever there was a track meet, she would make connections with other coaches, and other teams or whatever. And she really enjoyed her time in Texas and wanted to go back to Texas. She's in Louisville, Kentucky, and then she wanted to go back to Texas. And so after she finished her contract in Louisville, she got a job offer at Sam Houston University and the University of North Texas. And so she chose the University of North Texas, not as an assistant athletic trainer, but they hired her as the head athletic trainer for track and field at the University of North Texas. And so she did that for 4 years, and then she decided that she didn't want to do collegiate sports anymore because it's all about money with them. And she's so compassionate and empathetic to the athletes, and she was really caring about their quality of life and their health. But, the coaches are like, get back on the field, do what it is that you have to do. But she's the one taking care of them and taking them to the doctor and doing all of those things. And so she decided she didn't want to do collegiate sports anymore. And not only that, she was homesick. So she was missing, home. She left the University of North Texas collegiately. And then through the company she worked for, she started working in an industrial setting. And she did that for a little while, but her desire was to come back home. Finally, I think it's been 2 years now. So she actually came back home to Chicago. So she's here. And she got a job with ATI, who has a contract with Chicago Public Schools to have athletic trainers in their high schools. So she got a job. She's the district AT for ATI here in Chicago, and she services the schools on the South Side. And she, full circle moment, she is the athletic trainer over the high school that she graduated from. So my advice is to cultivate your children. It goes beyond just taking care of the basics. But had I not had my children in that track and field club, she would have never probably got the idea that that's what she even wanted to do.
Yes, ma'am.
In high school. And then eventually get into the medical field. So then she has taken now, because she's as an athletic trainer, she is a healthcare professional. She's the first line of defense for the athletes. And here in the inner city, they don't have the funding as they do in the suburban schools and the other schools or whatever. But it's so much talent in the Chicago public schools. But if those student athletes get hurt, they never can make it, to a bigger stage. So what she's doing is very important, and she's very passionate about that. So my advice to young mothers is to, cultivate your children, to find out, what it is, to support them in what it is that they want to do, and to provide opportunities for them to do it.
Excellent advice, ma'am. Wonderful. And people are showing you love all around, saying, finger snapping, all such as fire emojis and all that good stuff. 2 more questions for you. Once again, can we see your book and make sure everybody see the name of it? Let's make sure we all go support. Now, you spoke earlier about not losing yourself. And, as a woman, once your children were out of the house, keeping your identity of who Echo Muhammad is by yourself. What advice would you give to women, mothers who have children, whether they're young or old, just not losing themselves?
Well, I think, and I guess I should preface by saying I never really lost myself. I just wasn't as in tune or as in touch with myself as I should have been.
Okay.
And that I didn't realize that until my youngest daughter went away to school. When my oldest daughter went away to school, I still had my youngest daughter. So I was doing, still had her in the house and was doing everything for her. And then when she went away to college, I was just remember coming home from work, sitting on the couch like, okay, now what? Because I was so used to running them around or, managing their lives and doing what needed to be done for them. And now that empty nester syndrome, that's no joke.
Mm.
That is no joke. I mean, I could almost compare it to like, and not to downplay like postpartum, but it's a shift that happens with women, especially if they're really involved with their children. That I mean, I went through a little state of depression. It's like she went away in August, and then I was like, so excited when November came, when the holiday break came for them to be home, because I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I miss them so much. I soon got over it though, and then I was like, okay, I was glad to be an empty nester, but but that first initial feeling of like, now what? And I just remember, and I said, okay, I need to be doing something. Well, what
Mm.
is it that I want to do? And it's like I really had to take time and that's why journaling is important too, because I wrote out, okay, what is it that I want the second half of my life to look like? You know, what is it, the things that I want to do? So for me, traveling is therapeutic for me.
Mm.
I have I have a morning routine, I have a nighttime routine. I exercise, I eat right, I take care of myself because I want to be here. I want to live, a healthy and fulfilled life. So I do the things that I need to do in order to do that. But I also want to feel, happiness and joy. So I had to figure out, okay, what excites me? What brings a smile to my face, And so those are the things that I do. And so even if there are some women that have young children, you have to take the time for yourself. And you have to not feel guilty about doing that. They'll be okay. If you have a support system, if you have help, if you have a mother or mother-in-law or sisters that will keep your children to give you a few hours by yourself, even if you don't do anything but go to a coffee shop, even if just go sit in the park or just read a book for a couple of hours, whatever it is, do those things. Don't stop doing the things for you that make you happy.
Good advice that they teaching. And Mimi said, "Walaikum salam, Mimi. Thank you for tapping in." And Sister Echo shouted you out for getting her book earlier. Okay, our last question for you, ma'am. What type of music do you enjoy listening to?
Okay, so I'm a house head. I'm from
Okay, okay.
Chicago, so house music. But as far as listening, um, so when I say that, so if house music comes on, I'm dancing to it. Um,
Okay,
but I'm really old school R&B,
okay,
you know, 70s, 80s, or even some 90s R&B. But like my I mean, I like some new stuff now a little bit, not too much, but I'm Jill Scott fan,
okay,
forever, Raheem Devon, Eric Roberson, Leah Hathaway. I just,
okay.
so that kind of smooth, neo soul, R&B, Erica Badu kind of vibe. That's what I like listening to.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Perfect. And you can't go wrong with Neo Soul. And there's concerts in Atlanta all the time down here. So we always seeing people go to their concerts. I'm trying to get convinced Naima to go to this, my sister Naima to go to this concert. Music Soul Child, Eric Benet. I think they're gonna be down here this month. So
Mhm.
that's like a cool concert I'll go to. Okay, ma'am. If you last point, can we get you to hold your book and just tell us some of the benefits of adult coloring.
So this is my book, Empower Her Soul, A Black Woman's Guide to Self-Love in Color. And in the book, like I stated, it has self-care tips, it has journal prompts, as well as the coloring pages. And it's basically to help you get into a meditative state. Like I said before, you pray to God to talk to him, but you meditate to listen to what he has to say. And it's very beneficial because, through my meditation is when I got the idea to even publish this book.
Mm.
And then there's so many great ideas that have come to me. I've been meditating consistently every day. Today marked 2,294 days that I
Mm.
have meditated consistently. Some days I meditate for just 5 minutes. Some days I meditate for 10, 20. It just depends on what I have going on that day. But I start my day with meditation. And since I've been on this journey, like I said, it's been 2,294 days consecutively that I
Beautiful.
have meditated. So it's just, it helps me to have calm and peace of mind. And like I said, a lot of good downloads and bright ideas come from you quieting your mind. Even if you have, and I want to give advice that even if you have thoughts, if you say, okay, I'm gonna meditate, and if you sit there and then you start thinking about your to-do list and you start thinking about what you need to get from the grocery store or what bills got to be paid, it's fine. Acknowledge those thoughts, acknowledge that you having those thoughts, but then go back to clearing your mind, you
Yes,
know.
ma'am.
And so whatever it is you got to do to do that.
Excellent. See, you gave us that perfect clip. We're gonna chop it up. Make sure we share it on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That we're gonna support your book. We're going to Amazon. You said the links. What? Once again, your social media name.
It's
Your name on
Miss
social.
Echo, Messecho, Miss Echo Chantel, Chantel, on Instagram and on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. Perfect, perfect. Yes, ma'am. Well, this means a lot. My sister Mimi says excellent advice. This means a lot to myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. We support you. We're gonna Mimi, you weren't here earlier, but I'm gonna buy a book. And I already bought one. But I'm gonna buy one. We're gonna give it away to one of the women who always comment on People's Podcast, and we'll send it directly to them on behalf of the People's Podcast to support our sisters in adult coloring. We love your family, and man, I look forward to
Sure,
seeing you
sure.
as an adult, inshallah. And shout out to your daughters, and shout out to all of your friends, your whole friend group. Tell them we miss them, and we love them. And then we looking through pictures the other day, seeing all these pictures of my moms with all y'all. So it's nothing but love, and it's great memories. Um, let's make sure we all support Sister Echo. Mimi says Sister Echo's coloring book is awesome. Yes, Mimi, we see you coloring in it all the time. This
Thank
is
you,
Josh.
baby. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off of the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.